Hello, Merry Meet. I'm Sapphire, your host, and you are listening to the Occultorium Historian. I think I want to take this channel into the direction of a podcast, mostly because I don't like editing videos and I just don't have the energy for it right now. But I think we are going to have a good time. So I have some scripts written up, and I've got a nice fresh cup of tea, and my husband was lovely enough to set up a microphone for me in the bedroom, so that way I can have a little bit more privacy than out in the living room. So, without further ado, let's get into today's topic. Today we're going to continue on our Rewriting the Past series, where we talk about the history academic as a topic all by itself. So this is more of the academic-based conversation, but even if you're not a historian, you are more than welcome to hang out and listen and be part of the discussion. Now, if you please forgive me, I have been very sick for the past month or so, and I may have a bit of a speech problem currently. I go at the end of this month to get a tooth pulled. I was really sick on my birthday back in February. I'm 30 now, by the way. Good old lady over here. But I was really sick for my birthday, and then I got better. And then out of nowhere, everything tasted absolutely terrible, and my mouth started swelling up. So I went to the doctor, got a COVID test, so that way I could book a dental appointment. No COVID, obviously. And I actually surprisingly got a dental appointment on the same day that I got my COVID test. I wasn't expecting it to get done so fast. But I guess when you tell them that you're on antibiotics and your mouth is swollen, they get you in pretty quickly. But long story short, I go at the end of the month to get a tooth pulled. So until then, you all get to bear with my little nasally, heavy breathing. Because my mouth hurts very bad. But I've been dying to make content for the past month, and every time I look at the computer, I just end up writing a script, and I don't record anything because I either sound like garbage, and I just can't help it anymore. So, you all have to bear with this, but I know that the topic today that we're going to discuss is a bit of a heated topic, especially given with the political climate of the American culture currently, but this discussion, I would like to remain politic-free. I can promise you that I will remain politic-free. So I politely request that all comments be politic-free. If they're not, they will probably get deleted. Because on this platform, we are just discussing history as the academic topic. Nothing else. Okay? Okay. Alright, so today we're going to look at how nationalism can affect how history is remembered, taught, and even recorded. So now if you like these discussions, or if you want to have a bigger say in the direction of the channel as a whole, I recommend that you follow the link below. It links directly to the Patreon channel that I have linked to the Occultorium Historian, where you can get early access, behind the scenes, and contribute to the conversation in a much bigger way. And also, special note, I would like to thank Shannon and Alyssa and Adonis for being patrons. Thank you very much. Now, nationalism is a political and cultural force. It has a profound impact on the way history is written, remembered, and interpreted. From its rise in the 18th and 19th centuries, it has continued to have a strong relevance in the modern world. Nationalism has shaped the ways in which historical events are framed and taught within even our education systems. So we're going to explore that a little bit further today in our little discussion. So, at its core, nationalism is a movement. that seeks to promote and protect the interests of a particular nation or cultural group. National identity is deeply linked to nationalism. I know, that's a bit of a complex sentence, but honestly, it's super easy. Wherever you live is your national identity. Wherever you're born is your national identity. That is linked to nationalism. It refers to the shared values, symbols, myths, and collective memories that help define and distinguish your place from others. Now, according to Smith and his work, the construction of national identity involves a selective interpretation of history, with an emphasis placed on certain events, figures, and cultural achievements that reinforce the idea of a unified, distinctive, and exceptional nation. This process, which Smith refers to as, and I quote, national memory, unquote, forms the foundation of national pride and cohesion. One of the key roles of historical narratives in nationalism is the creation of a shared national history. By reshaping the past, nationalism seeks to promote the idea of a cohesive and unified nation, often emphasizing moments of triumph, unity, and progress, while downplaying and ignoring moments of division, conflict, or even failure. An example of this, in many countries, the founding of the nation, or the fight for independence, is celebrated as a pivotal moment in national history. These events are often portrayed in heroic terms, reinforcing the idea that the nation has a clear, predetermined destiny or mission. As Anderson's Imagined Communities, Reflections on the Origin and Spread of Nationalism, written in 2006, suggests that narratives serve to create a, quote, imagined community, unquote, where citizens of a nation feel connected through shared myths and stories, and even they may never even meet or know one another personally, but have this connection. National histories play a key role in fostering unity and a sense of belonging within a nation. And by promoting a collective understanding of the past, nationalist historical narratives encourage individuals to identify with the nation as a whole rather than on the individual level. This collective memory of the nation's past really helps to solidify a sense of pride and solidarity among its citizens, and could even be used to really form and build loyalty. National holidays such as the Independence Day in the United States or Bastille Day in France are rooted in historical events that have celebrated through ceremonies, speeches, and public rituals. These events serve to reinforce the shared values of the nation and remind citizens, or the individuals, of their collective heritage. National education systems often play a central role in promoting these narratives, teaching students a version of history that aligns with the nation's ideals and aspirations. According to Billing in Banal Nationalism, written in 1995, aka the year that I was born, such public displays of national identity through holidays, monuments, and rituals are part of what he calls, quote, banal nationalism, unquote. And all that really is the everyday reinforcement of national pride and unity through symbols and rituals that often go unnoticed. Like, let's say, the Pledge of Allegiance. What does all this really boil out down to? In times of crisis or conflict, national historical narratives are typically used to bolster national unity. During wars or periods of political upheaval, governments may draw on historical narratives that emphasize national resilience, sacrifice, and unity in the face of external or internal threats. As Hobsbawm, in his 1990 essay, argues, these myths of national unity can be crucial in consolidating national strength, with national heroes and historical events becoming symbols of the nation's resolve. A great example with this would be the Roman origin stories that had been written, the Iliad and the Odyssey, these amazing origin stories that were created to bolster Roman identity. Even those that weren't originally Roman, that had come to Rome, could latch onto these stories and become Roman through them. It was very interesting to study these stories when I was in school because you can really define the they and us, the we're the good guys, you're the bad guys situation. And it really shows the bolstering that the Romans did for their warriors through these stories. Now, while nationalism can help foster unity, it can also lead to the distortion or manipulation of historical events entirely, just to serve political agendas. Nationalist movements often engage in selective memory, choosing which events to emphasize and which to downplay or ignore totally. The selective approach to history is designed to present a vision of the nation as that is constantly progressing towards greatness and glossing over darker or more contentious periods. Many nations celebrate their victories and achievements while minimizing or even erasing the experiences of marginalized groups. In the US, for example, the narrative of American exceptionalism often emphasizes the country's democratic ideals, revolutionary past, and economic success, while downplaying the historical realities of slavery, racial discrimination, and displacement of indigenous peoples. To the history of European colonialism, it's frequently glossed over in nationalist historical narratives, with a focus placed on benefits brought by European expansion, rather than exploits and violence experienced by those colonized peoples. The construction of national myths can also contribute to the marginalization of alternative historical perspectives. In post-colonial societies, nationalist narratives may focus on the struggles for independence and the achievements of national liberation leaders, while completely ignoring the histories of indigenous peoples or others oppressed groups that did not fit within the dominant narrative. As Zerubbabel, in their work, The Social Mind, a study of the theory of collective memory, written in 1996, suggests, the dominant version of history often becomes so entrenched that it leaves little room for alternative viewpoints or critical reflection on that nation's past story. Nationalism also shapes public debate and historical memory by influencing how historical events are remembered and commemorated. Monuments, statues, and memorials serve a physical representation of national identity and historical memory. They often commemorate significant events or figures from the nation's past, and their placement and preservation are frequently subject to political debates, even to this day. In recent years, the question of which historical figures and events should be memorialized has become a highly contentious issue, both in and out of the academic fields. In many countries, statues and monuments dedicated to historical figures associated with colonization, slavery, or other forms of oppression have been completely taken down or relocated, leading to public debates about the role of these monuments in national memory. These debates highlight the ways in which nationalism, historical memory, and public monuments intersect, and how the selective use of history can shape national identity and influence contemporary political discourse. I, as a personal story, remember the time here in our town when a Confederate statue was taken down, and my father, who is in his 50s now, was very irate about it. It was a statue that he had grown up looking at on a regular basis. He was very familiar with the statue, but he did not realize that where the statue had been placed and when the statue had been built was not an appropriate location or time period for what the statue represented. It was built during the Jim Crow era. It was built in a predominantly black neighborhood. Now, they didn't completely destroy the statue. They actually ended up moving it to a museum location, which, in my personal opinion, suits it better. It can be better taken care of, it can be better represented within the museum of historical artifacts, and it can really be preserved instead of being in the middle of the street, where a car had actually hit it at one point. So, I can definitely see how the nationalism perspective in that moment altered my father's thinking, and how also the lack of nationalism within my own perceptions and thoughts created a divisive conversation between me and him. Now, once I explained that where the statue was going and things like that, he definitely realized more completely his thought process in the entire matter. But I just find it very fascinating when you encounter it in real life. And it really put my brain from a personal offense, which I think I would have taken it as such when I was younger, but having just studied the topic within my academic field, it really put me in that professional mind really kicked in that moment, and it really helped me navigate this very difficult conversation that I had to have with my father. And honestly, looking back on it, I think that was the moment that I realized that I wanted to do something that teaches people. So, anyways, to get back to the topic, the current state of American affairs and the rise of nationalism and toxicity. Now, like I said, we're not making this political, but you know we have to cover a little bit of the conversation, especially with the rise of what has been going on lately in the conversations that I've been overhearing and part of. Now, contemporary America, we are witnessing a resurgence of nationalism. It's marked by rise in populist movements, extreme political polarization, and increasingly toxic rhetoric surrounding national identity. This form of nationalism is often rooted in fear of cultural displacement, economic uncertainty, and the erosion of traditional values. As a result, the political and social climate has become more diverse, with certain groups using nationalism as a tool to maintain power and influence. This modern nationalism can often manifest as a more exclusionary or aggressive force, framing national identity in terms of us versus them, similar to how I talked about the Roman identities in their stories of the Iliad or the Odyssey. It really does become a moment of us versus them. They really feel that identity to the Trojan, and they really detest the Grecian heritage, although a lot of their identity came from it. Just saying. The current political discourse frequently has become emphasizing a vision of the nation that excludes marginalized groups, such as immigrants, people of color, or other ethnic or religious minorities. The rise of populism and the rhetoric of American exceptionalism in this context really draws a historical narrative that celebrates past victories while most definitely obscuring the darker aspects of American history. This selective historical memory unfortunately reinforces the idea that the nation is inherently superior, and it erases and distorts the struggles and contributions of those who did not fit into this narrative. The toxicity of this brand of nationalism is also very reflective in the growing presence of hate groups, who use distorted historical narratives to justify their beliefs. These groups often claim to be defenders of, quote, pure, unquote, national identity, drawing on myths of racial or cultural superiority and historical victimization. As Billig in his essay points out, such forms of nationalism often used everyday symbols and language to propagate their agenda, creating and normalizing discourse of division and exclusion that is woven into the fabric of national life. The consequence of this is more fragmented society, where national identity is based on exclusion rather than inclusion, and the historical narratives from that form the basis of this identity are manipulated to serve political, social, or even personal agendas. To give historical context to a modern-day problem, we see this trend mostly within the early 20th century, or even maybe the mid-19th century, when a lot of Irish immigrants began coming over to America from their home, a lot of them driven from their home, unfortunately, but they came to America to seek a better life, and a lot of American nationalism rose during that time. They viewed these Irish immigrants as job takers, as criminals even, and a lot of these people, they were just coming over to try to eat and exist and live their life and have something better than what they had before. So it is a common thing that we do see trending almost like a roller coaster within American contexts, and the Irish immigration wasn't the first, it wasn't the last, this isn't the first, and this won't be the last. And I say that with a bit of a laugh because you can either not embrace it, obviously we don't want to embrace it, but you can either take it for what it is, learn from that experience, and use that to better progress your historical narrative, to protect your historical narrative from these nationalist views. Or you can be ignorant to it and just let it happen. So, that is a big reason why this episode is coming out today. I really want those of you who are listening to understand that nationalism is not a disease. It is not a plague. Yes, it can be a problem, but that's if we allow it to become a problem. We are the defenders of our own history, and we really need to make sure that we understand that this trend is not uncommon. It is a common thing, and it happens. All of us feel cultural pride, national pride. We cannot let it form a bias when it comes to our record keeping. So, nationalism has a powerful impact on the way history is written and remembered, and it can influence historical narratives to serve to either construct or dismantle senses of identity and unity. Promoting national pride and cohesion, however, the selective nature of these narratives can really distort and downplay uncomfortable and inconvenient truths, which a lot of them need to be known and embraced in order for us to grow as a country. As nationalism continues to shape global politics and culture, the role of history in constructing national identities truly remains central to debates about historical memory, social justice, and the future of national narratives. By critically examining the impact of nationalism on historical narratives, we can gain a deeper understanding of how history is used to shape political power and collective memory within contemporary society. Now, to close off today's discussion, I'm keeping it relatively brief today. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means so much more than you could ever know for this channel. Be sure to click the subscribe button to stay up to date when videos are released. And if you feel daring enough, click the link below and check out the Patreon. If you become a member, you can have access to behind the scenes, research, early access videos, and so much more. Stay curious, and see you next time.